Okay, buckle up, buttercups. I am going to read you an excerpt from Sinclair Lewis's book, It Can't Happen Here. Now, this is a fictional novel written back in the 1930s, and our main character, who's going to be giving this little rant, is a newspaper editor. And he is kind of a pacifist, and he regards himself very much as centrist and a newspaper editor. And so he likes to report the facts, he likes to stay neutral, but he finds himself increasingly throughout the book in a situation where he can no longer remain neutral. And when you discuss psychology and politics and and in conjunction with the recovery space and neuroscience, we think that we're arguing a lot of times about these ideals and this and what's the right answer and what's da-da-da-da-da. But, more often than not, politics is just the topic. The real issue is interpersonal dynamics anyway. So Sinclair Lewis wrote this book almost 100 years ago. Almost 100 years ago, right? And I'm telling you, this rant plays just as well today as it did then, okay? So I'm going to take some excerpts from It Can't Happen Here, and I'm starting at about page 111 if you want to grab your own copy. Once you get past some of the old-timey references, there's several things that he references that I don't know what they are, but I'm sure they were super funny. When it was an original piece. I'm sure people in the future will look at my jokes and be like, I don't know what any of those references are. Why is she talking about chat roulette? Anyway, so this is Dormus, the newspaper editor. He's quite frustrated because his personal privacy is being invaded. He's being forced at work and at home to choose sides, and he really doesn't like the position he is being put in. So here we go. But there's the worst trouble of the whole cursed business of analysis. When I get to defending democracy against communism and fascism and whatnot, I sound like the Lothrop Stoddards. Why? I sound almost like a Hearst editorial on how some college had to kick out a dangerous red instructor in order to preserve our democracy for the ideals of Jefferson and Washington. Yet somehow, seeing the same words, I have a notion my tune is entirely different from Hearst's. I don't think we've done very well with all the plowland and forest and minerals and husky human stock we had. What makes me sick about Hearst and the Daughters of the American Revolution is if they are against communism, then I have to be for it. Do you see what he's saying? He's basically saying, I'm so not in this guy's group. I do not agree with these people about this history of me not agreeing with them. That if they're against communism, even though I'm not for communism, I feel compelled to act like I am just because I can't be in their camp. I can't find myself agreeing with them. Okay, so what's going on? In our amygdala, our limbic system, our prefrontal cortex, and we're going, well, whatever they think, I think the opposite, and I don't care if it actually checks in with my internal thing, right? Okay, so back to this. And what's the solution of preventing this debacle? Plenty of them. The communists have a patent solution they know will work. So have the fascists. And the rigid American constitutionalists who call themselves advocates of democracy without any notion what the word ought to mean. And the monarchists who are certain that if we could just resurrect the Kaiser and Tsar and King Alfonso, everybody would be loyal and happy again. And the banks would simply force credit on small businessmen at 2%. And all the preachers, they would tell you that they alone had inspired the solution. Well, gentlemen, I've listened to all your solutions. And I now inform you that I, and I alone, except for perhaps Walt Trowbridge or the ghost of Pareto, have the perfect, the inevitable, and the only solution, and that is, there is no solution. There will never be a state of society anything like perfect. There will never be a time, a large portion of people who feel poor, no matter how much they have, and envy their neighbors who know how to wear cheap clothing showily, and envy neighbors who can dance or make love or digest better. His solution, Doremus pointed out, was the only one that did not flee before the thought that 1,000 years from now, human beings would probably continue to die of cancer and earthquakes and such clownish mishaps as slipping in bathtubs. It presumed that mankind would continue to be burdened with eyes that grow weak, feet that grow tired, noses that itch, intestines vulnerable to bacteria, and generative organs that are nervous until the age of virtue and senility. He suspected that tornadoes, floods, droughts, lightning, and mosquitoes would remain, along with homicidal tendencies known in the best of citizens when their sweethearts go dancing off with other men. And that is the solution. There is no solution. There is no solution. And that's not to say that we can't make a better society, a more just society, but there is no perfect society. There is no perfect. The idea of perfection is ridiculous anyway. There's whole people, whole podcasts, whole books all about get rid of perfectionism, and it's true because there is no perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. But perceptions, emotions, those exist. Those are real. And what is he saying? He's saying a lot of stuff I agree with. But the point that he's making is, no matter what happens, whether our country's rich, poor, whether you're rich or poor, he's pointing out the fact that there's a certain part of the population that ain't gonna like it and ain't gonna be happy. And it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's always gonna be someone they're jealous of. These are jealous people. You have to remember, man, we're primates. We're mostly monkeys. Really are. And competition, there's a lot of female on female competition and male on male competition. And of course, but female rivalry, male rivalry, does the rich lady who spends thousands and thousands on her clothes and then she sees some other mom at the school, and she knows she's a single mom and doesn't have any money, but damn, does she look better than her every morning? And she can't stand it. She's going nuts, why? Well, I'll tell you why. There's a certain subset of people that will never be happy no matter what they have, and that's because, again, we're monkeys. And we go around consciously and unconsciously. Think about it. You walk into a room, you feel good, you feel cute that day, right? Hair turned out good, things look good, blah, blah. And you walk in and, you're sauntering over, you're going to grab yourself a little appetizer, blend in. Ooh, look, but something small, so I don't get anything in my teeth, nothing green, right? And then you're spinning slowly and the light's hitting you just right. And then you look across the room and she's here. Why is she here? Ugh, I hate she. When she's here, I don't feel as good about me. Why? It feels like she is always here. Why is she here? So, what's that stemming from? Are you just a petty person? No. Are you a bitch? I don't know. Maybe you are, but where's it coming from? It's just coming from competitiveness. And it's hardwired. in our, prefrontal cortex. It is. I mean, how many times have you thought something really mean about somebody, and then there's the part of you that goes, no, stop that. That's not fair. You shouldn't think that. That's not nice. Erase, erase, erase. I always say that to my brain. Erase, erase. Where'd that come from? See, now that's showing that you're at least aware and that you probably are a good person. If you can stop and interrupt that thought after it happens. But where do those thoughts come from? Is it your soul? Is it your consciousness? Is it one of them places that you can't reach? No. Turns out, I'm reading a lot and listening to a lot of the lectures given by Robert Sapolsky. And he is a brilliant man. And but he's a doctor and has PhDs in neuroscience, primatology, and psychiatry. And he studies the connections in the animal world, right? He has a heavy emphasis on primates and what it has to do with human beings evolutionarily, right? Like, I mean, if you believe in natural selection, like the reason why we have evolution, we don't have dinosaurs anymore, but what used to be types of dinosaurs are now birds. They're types of birds now. And that's, evolution. And so he's got a lot of really cool lectures about dissecting these. Where do these impulses and these instincts that flash up like that, like anger and jealousy and rivalry and all that icky stuff that, can kind of, you're like, where'd that come from? Like, why did I, and, jealousy and all that stuff. I mean, when they talk about studying primates, I mean, what is primate end in mate, and you may react to these situations differently depending on what your hormone level is. You may, if you feel like, you felt like you looked really cute, but you just got your monthly bill that morning and you're kind of crampy and you're a little lightheaded because, your blood's low or whatever. And you feel a little swollen and then you see her and she's here, So, but if you notice in yourself that you're kind of stuck in your own little envy party, and we can all get in there. We all have people that we're envious of, jealous of, that someone who looks like they've got it more together, more figured out, better life, better spouse, better boobs, better whatever, and that might be true. That could be. But focusing on that brings you no happiness. That brings you no peace. So how can you make peace with the mean thoughts and the competitive thoughts? And you kind of can't stop them because these are brain processes and there's genetic factors, there's biological factors, but there's a lot of environmental factors. And the environmental factors and and then also hormone levels and whether you ate that day. If you're hungry, you are more likely to react in an aggressive manner to information that's unpleasant, not necessarily because you've become a more aggressive person, but because your body is depleted. There's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of hurry. There's this we gotta go. I gotta eat, anyway, there's a variety of things that can come into this. So, but bringing it back and wrapping it up on this, because I didn't want this to be a long one. I just wanted to give you this little teaser from our buddy Sinclair Lewis, but there's nothing wrong with questioning why you think something has to be one way or another. Like it has to be. To bring it back to the quote, Why do I have to pick between this and this? You know, what about this? There's more space in between here than here and here. You know, like why? Why do I? And that's how I think a lot of Americans feel. We want to keep our country safe, keep the citizens safe. That is important. But we also want a well-informed and well-educated country. We want to be able to have our renewable resources sustained as long as possible. And we want to invest in things that are nicer to the environment. That's not anything that's about, there's no part of communism or fascism or anything that has anything to do with the environment. I mean, human beings are really the only creature on the planet that would intentionally destroy its own habitat just because it doesn't like another group of animals or whatever. You know? I mean, there's really the only thing that, you know, this Dr. Robert Sapolsky, again, check out his work, it's amazing, but he was basically saying, I mean, there's pretty much anything that we kind of have behaviorally for the most part, in some way, shape, or form, you can find it in the animal kingdom in some ways, and we have there's a lot of shared, you know, commingling there with the primates in that, but humans, the one thing that they can't find in any other animals, and this is something that, I mean, we are capable of an incredible empathy and incredible love, and so much so that one of the examples he gives in one of the lectures is, you can watch an animated cartoon, you know it's fake, you know it's not real, and you're crying, you know, like, you know, ooh, you know, and it's you know, it's like some kind of a tear-jerking story about some inanimate object being thrown out, you know, like Toy Story. No other animals on the planet are getting teared up at the, you know, at the end of like Monsters Incorporated or something like that. So like the fact that we, and that's one of the points that he said, is that why storytelling is so powerful and so effective for recognition and cognition for humans, is that we categorize things very metaphorically. Metaphors help us figure out what we think about things. And if a metaphor is just an example, a metaphor is when you take some kind of a concept and then you put a story with it. Well, we all learn better then. I mean, that's, at least I do. You know, I like lots of information, but if you can put it in context of a story or when you might encounter a situation, I'm more likely to be able to, you know, dig it and retain what it is, you know, which always helps. What's going on in this country politically, I stress again, has very little to do with policy. It has very little to do with policy debates or ideological debates, any of that. A lot of this is punishment. Oh, that was the thing I was going to say about the primates, is sadomasochism. Sadomasochism, the other side of that, we have incredible compassion. We have the ability to cry for inanimate objects, right? But we're also the only species that has sadomasochism, or, you know, they don't see that in any other animal species. So while we are capable of incredible empathy on some ends, we are also capable of some incredibly inhumane and vile and disturbing things. And more often than not, though, as this man's work seems to prove, and this is not to justify anybody's terrible behavior, but with what we know about biology, the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making processes, you are making decisions throughout your day, but there are a lot of decisions that are happening in a chemical and a biological level that are influencing you, but they're not conscious thought. They're circumstances within the body. They're not thought, so you don't think them. You don't realize it. Like, if you've ever had the experience of having a weight like strapped onto a wrist or an arm, and then, and you got to wear it around, right? Like the workout weights, right? But and then you take them off and, ooh, oh my God, it feels like my arms are floating. They're so light. Did your arms get lighter? No, right? But it's kind of the same thing. If you're suffering from depression, right? That can just be a weight on you, right? And they literally say like, oh, I've got a weight on me, I feel like weight. It's true, but that's the way we describe and we use metaphor to explain what's happening. And what's really happening isn't so much that we're a bad person or we think terrible thoughts or our mother hates us or that, blah, blah, blah. A lot of it has to do with the fact of what are our hormone levels? Do we have a healthy hippocampus? Have we ever had PTSD, or have we ever had any kind of a head injury? Head injuries can damage part of your brain. And what they found is, and that's the thing. Think of what we'll know in 200 years, but, when you look at, and obviously I'm no scientist, but the parts of the brain, they would think that they thought when they were seeing all these little sections, like, oh, this one does this, and this one does that, and this one's for this, and this one's for that. Like they all work together. And so when you find yourself getting worked up about politics, online, arguing with people, whatever, and you start getting that little shot of adrenaline, and you're sitting forward a little bit, that's your amygdala. That's your, you're getting dopamine off that. You're getting, maybe endorphins, and there's a path, right? But there's a trade-off too, because if you keep engaged all the time, like when I get my CPTSD loops where I think everything's falling apart and the world's ending and you start spinning, and they've proven through like brain scans that if they show people like pictures of just neutral faces, like no expression, just neutral, a regular person, not regular, there's no regular or normal, right? But like the baseline, has no discernible mental health thing or whatever, they are more likely, and then you have the test subjects like say, is that a neutral face, a happy face, or a sad face, right? Or a mean face, right? And what they found is, with the control group, mostly they're like, it's neutral, and with the people that have been suffering from PTSD and CPTSD, they have a propensity to see a neutral face as a dangerous face or a negative face or a scary face or threatening face. And the face didn't change. Your eyeballs didn't change. Your retina didn't change. Your cornea, none of that stuff. None of that has changed. So why? Well, when you have a traumatic event, no matter what, for a period of time, your animal brain is going to be extra hyper vigilant and scouting for danger. Like we're not getting that one again. We're not, we barely dodged whatever that thing was, right? And they've shown over years, usually it takes, and it varies on people, they're saying, but your central nervous system generally, your sympathetic nervous system, roughly, will go back and reset in about 4 years. If nothing other else that comes along and, you know, makes it worse, right? But if you've already had previous traumatic experiences and then you get another one, I mean, it's so what ends up happening is there's parts of your brains that are just basically stuck on, you know. You want to go to sleep. You want to be able to, you know, like OCD. You can't control it. Like, of course you would like to, you know, you don't necessarily want to wash your hands for 6 hours a day, but the reason why you don't want, it's not why do I keep washing my hands 6 hours a day? It's like, why do I keep washing my hands and they're not clean? You know, we're sitting there going, well, they look clean to me, but it doesn't feel that way. And so, like, the neutral faces didn't feel neutral. And that's kind of the point. Mostly we feel stuff and then we come up with our logic as to how we felt that way. We don't usually think about the logic and then go, and now I'm going to feel this way, right? The feeling comes and then we're like, what is that? Where did it come from? And if you've had the experience of, like, 2 days later, you think of the best comeback, like, that would have totally worked if I'd have thought of that 2 days ago. Because your emotions in your body and your limbic system was upset for a reason. It knew it was upset. But it may not be able to have articulated at that point what the actual logic of it was. But that's not to say that everything that we get upset about has some logical reason, because it doesn't. It doesn't. A lot of it has to do with how are we feeling inside? Have we had enough sleep? Have we had enough nourishment? Are we eating too much food? Too little food? Are we eating the right amount of calories, but we're eating all of our calories in one sitting in the day, right? Are we moving our body too much? Are we not moving it enough, you know? And I'm terrible at self-care. I struggle. I force myself to do it. And that's why I've been listening to a lot of these lectures. Dr. Sapolsky, if you're interested, Robert Sapolsky, he is a professor and a fellow and all that at Stanford University, and there's a series of his lectures that you can watch for free on YouTube, and each of them is about an hour and a half long. And this is a class that they teach on human biology and, you know, and all this stuff, and it's like an overview, but often the students in this are either biology or pre-med or something of that ilk. And so very, very smart people, but he's so good. He's so good. Don't be, you know, I did okay in sciences and that, but never took it anything beyond like 101 chemistry in college, right? But he's so good at explaining and using those metaphors and explaining it in a way that helps you process it and make sense. So, but just as more things start to get goofy in this country, the anger that if we let ourselves run wild with anger and we just give into that, I mean, it's fun for a minute and you get the dopamine and whatever, but I mean, we're getting to a point where we're not going to necessarily be able to walk back all these hurt feelings. And some of us need to be a little bit more mature about the fact that, you know, even though, you know, the way things are right now in this country, I'm leaning left. I don't want a country where we don't have, you know, all the people that don't agree with me have to leave either. Because we should be able to all disagree. But what we need to stop doing is pretending like this is a fight we actually have to join. We don't. You know, you don't have to fight. You don't. You don't have to fight with people and tell them all about it. Politics, you know, there isn't a solution. No one has the right answer. His solution, Doramis's character, his solution is there is no solution. There is no perfect place. We're still going to have mosquitoes. We're still going to have tornadoes. We're still going to have bad feet. We're still going to have unfaithful spouses. We're still going to have problems. And there, in any politician or ideologue or religious speaker or mail order bride or person you meet in a chat room, no matter who tells you that they can make your life perfect for you, you know, they're selling you something. They're crooking you. They're crooking you. So just ask yourself why. What would be? Why? You know why? Like why? Why does it feel so wrong? Like, you know, you have like a reaction of like disgust even.